Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ediverse podcast. I'm very glad to have you here. And today we're going to be talking about what grows in the dark. What I mean by this is most of us get caught in a place where we doubt the progress that we're making based on the seeds that we've planted in our lives, whether in regard to skill or the improving of something. But before we get into it, all links will be in the description below. Feel free to leave any comments and share with anyone who you think may need to hear this. So, without further ado, let's begin. The most important work happens when no one can see it. Let me tell you something about, I'm going to use seeds as an example. When you plant a seed, people don't necessarily see what's happening underneath. You plant the seed, you water it, you put it in the sun, you give it the necessary things required for a seed to germinate, but nothing happens. And then slowly by slowly, at least unseen is underneath the ground, what's happening when you see nothing is the roots are coming out, the seed is splitting, and it's building essentially a foundation for its growth. The future branches and fruit that we will see is a result of what happened in the dark, underground, for example. And that's essentially is what I want to touch on. This one won't be too long, but I just wanted to give my thoughts and perspective on things that grow in the dark, and I've written a few notes here. So what you don't see of that seed is the rooting, the splitting, and the overall breaking open of the seed. And you can't see it, but like most things in life, in regard to building a skill in this case, that's the most important part. The part where you can't see it, the part where work is happening, but it's unseen by the outside world. For example, as an artist, a few things. Part one would be what people see versus what's happening. People see the finished result, and they don't necessarily understand what's happening underneath. As an artist, people will see the finished piece and they'll congratulate you for it, and it'll be on their walls at an auction as their wallpaper, or you'd be a huge inspiration to someone. As a writer, they see your book on the shelf and they buy it and they read it and they say, this is so cool. As an athlete, they see you winning the race or getting a personal record, or running a certain distance or hiking a certain mountain. And even as an individual, just as a person, most people see how reliable you are. Most people see what a good friend or parent or uncle or auntie or cousin you are. But what people don't see for the artist is the amount of failed sketches, for example, the amount of things that didn't go right, the amount of paintings that you've burnt or pages that you've thrown out, or the hours of work that you're putting in every day just to get 1% better at the thing. As a writer, the amount of drafts and layout and correction and redrafting and removing some chapters and adding more chapters, and rewording things, and sometimes even changing entire characters. I'm saying that from experience. As an athlete, it's the plyometrics and the drills, the hours in the pool if you're a swimmer, the hours on the track if you're a track and field athlete, the hours in the gym if you're a lifter, or a gymnast, or whatever sport you do. As a musician, it could be people see the finished song, people see the composition, but they don't see the for example, the 9 years of playing piano that it took you to get there, or the amount of classes that you'd had to do to be able to learn how to produce your first song, or something like that. And that's the thing about the dark, is that it's lonely. It's a lonely journey, but it is the most important part, in my opinion. Next is, why does the dark matter? In simple terms, it's the foundation, essentially. It's what is responsible for everything else that will come on top of that, if that makes sense. It is what you build off of. The amount of the 700 pages of drawings that you've done that nobody will ever see is the stepping point to the galleries that your art will be in. The amount of song drafts that are hidden in your phone are the stepping point to the concerts in the stadiums that you'll fill and stuff like that. You get my point. The importance of this is building a foundation. It is the root part, whereas people see the branches and the fruits and the twigs and the leaves, yet nobody really cares much for the root of the tree, because it's the part that remains most unseen. And in some cases, if we're to continue using the analogy of the tree, with some trees, the roots are larger than the tree itself. And that's a very important thing to take into context as a human being, is sometimes the amount of building up that you'd have to do is much more than the reward at times, seemingly. And that's okay, because that reward would not have come without the amount of work that you put into that thing. And the person that you are becoming requires that foundation. It requires a skill, it requires a discipline, it requires a worth ethic, the resilience, the waking up early, the, building new habits and stuff like that. And the next thing I want to talk about is trusting the process you can't see. I'll speak more from an artist and writer's perspective. When you undertake a goal or the progression of a skill, in my case, that would be art and writing. So I have this whole 1 year art plan to get better at drawing and painting, etc. It's hard to trust the process because you don't necessarily know what the end goal will be, and I'll explain why that's good. You don't exactly know what the end goal will be. But the important thing is to trust the process. And I like to tell myself, if a human being has done it, then I can do it. That's my philosophy. If there's someone in this world that has accomplished a goal similar to mine, then I will do everything in my power to be able to achieve that goal. Because it means if a human being can do it and I'm human, it means I can do it too. And from a writing perspective, you're on the first draft of, let's say, a 15 chapter, 30 chapter book. It's very hard to just trust the process because of the amount of changes that you know are going to happen as time progresses. But I think you should. And the reason why I think trusting the process of the unknown, of things that you can't see, is good, is because if you start to give yourself limits, you start to shut down the limitless potential that's within each and every one of us. The good thing about trusting a process you can't see is because you do not know your full potential, and you never will, because in this walk of life, there's never, or there should never be, a peak necessarily. It should always be, I succeeded at this thing. What's next? Always the next thing. Otherwise, you begin to get comfortable and subconsciously limit yourself. I'm not saying that achieving good things is bad, but getting one good thing and just remaining with that good thing for the rest of your life instead of pursuing more is where I feel the comfort of success can be a little bit boring or misleading in a sense, whereas it stops you from reaching what your true potential could be, whatever potential that is. The next thing is what's going on in your version of the dark. As I mentioned before, for the artist, it's the paintings that you despised and hated, and people will never see. For the musician, it's the songs, and the amount of hours you've put in. For just a regular human being, sometimes it's the overthinking, as a reliable person that you do, when people rely on you, and sometimes most people don't see what goes on in your mind, and that's okay. So, what is your version of the dark? Sorry, what is your version of the dark? For me, I think, again, speaking as an artist primarily, is this I really, really like art, but sometimes there's a certain pain that comes when you don't see progress, especially after long periods of time. And that's something that tends to bother me a lot and I'm trying to deal with. But you put in X amount of hours. I normally log the amount of hours that I spend drawing, at least from January this year, till now. It's been well over 80 hours worth of art. Only 10 to 20% of which has been shared with a group of people, because the others is just for me, because I know that if I want to reach my true potential, that this is necessary. And so I want to leave you with a little something that I wrote here. As a human being, you're not growing for applause or praise. You're growing because that's what living things do. They grow. And so, to anyone out there who's in the midst of their own version of the dark, I hope that you can be hopeful, be definitely hopeful that all this is worth it, because I promise you it is. All of this work that you're putting into whatever thing that is, even if it's not something that I mentioned today, whatever thing that is, whether it's you're building courses or writing books or starting a business or, putting together something for the sake of your future, whatever it is, however small or large, but even if it's something as simple and enjoyable as gardening, whatever it is, all the work that you're putting into it is not in vain, and I can promise you that. So be sure to trust the process, and I look forward on your behalf for the results of the seed that you've sown, and that you may reap the reward 1,000-fold. Anyway, that was a little short one for today, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. As usual, all links are in the description below. Thank you so much for listening or watching, wherever you're listening or watching from, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and goodbye.